Story 1. The Shadow in the Laundry Room. When I was a child, barely 6 or 7, our family home held a secret that would haunt me for years. The house was old, creaky, and filled with the kind of character only a century of stories could carve into its walls. But it was the basement that gripped my young heart with icy dread. To me, it wasn't just a basement, it was a cavern of shadows, a labyrinth of whispered fears that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. My father had rented out the upstairs to an elderly woman named Ruth, a kind but reclusive soul who kept to herself. This left us with the first floor and the sprawling, unfinished basement below, a space that felt like it belonged to another world entirely. The basement was vast, its concrete floors stretching out beneath dim fluorescent lights that flickered like the last breaths of a dying star. An ancient L-shaped couch sat in the center, its gray fabric worn and sagging, positioned in front of a hulking wooden support beam that seemed to hold up the house itself. In front of the couch was an old boxy television, its screen perpetually fuzzy, connected to our prized collection of video game consoles, Nintendo, Sega, the works. The layout was peculiar, a circular path that wound around the couch, connecting a dusty booth and table in one corner, a forgotten bar in another, and a laundry room tucked behind a creaky door. Nearest to the stairs was my father's workout room, a small space filled with rusting dumbbells and the faint smell of sweat. I was the youngest of 3 brothers, and on this particular day, I was alone. My older siblings were off with friends, my father was at work, and my mother was upstairs, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The solitude amplified my unease as I descended the basement stairs, each step groaning under my weight. The door at the top of the stairs was notorious. It refused to stay open, creeping shut with a slow, deliberate squeak unless propped open with something heavy. That day I hadn't bothered to secure it, and as it closed behind me, the sound was like a coffin lid sealing shut. I felt cut off from the world above, trapped in the basement's eerie embrace. I settled onto the couch, controller in hand, diving into whatever game had captured my imagination at the time. But the basement was never silent. It groaned and hissed, the laundry room in particular a source of unsettling noises, clanking pipes, the hum of the dryer, the occasional thud of something unplaceable. I'd grown accustomed to these sounds, but they still set my nerves on edge. Every creak made me pause my game, my eyes darting to the shadows, expecting to see something, someone, lurking just out of sight. Then it happened. A sound unlike any I'd heard before cut through the basement's usual symphony. It came from the laundry room, sharp and distinct, the unmistakable thud of something heavy dropping to the floor, followed by a couple of bounces, like a ball settling after a fall. My heart lurched. I froze, my thumb hovering over the pause button, straining to hear anything else. Silence followed, thick and oppressive, as if the basement itself were holding its breath. I leapt from the couch, my small legs carrying me up the stairs in a blur of panic. "Mom!" I gasped, bursting into the kitchen. "There's someone in the basement." My mother, ever calm, knelt to my level, her eyes searching mine. "Sweetheart, what did you hear?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. I recounted the sound, my words tumbling over each other in my haste. She listened, then offered a reassuring smile. "It's probably just the house settling. But let's go check, okay?" Together we descended the stairs, her hand warm in mine. She opened the laundry room door, flicked on the light, and peered inside. After a moment, she closed the door and turned to me. "See? No one's there. You're safe." Relief washed over me, and I returned to my game, the incident fading like a bad dream. But as the day wore on and dusk crept in, the basement grew darker, its 2 small windows offering no reprieve from the encroaching night. I went upstairs for a snack, the warmth of the kitchen a stark contrast to the chill below. After eating, I steeled myself to return to the basement, drawn back by the pull of my game. That's when I heard it again. The heater in the laundry room roared to life, louder than I'd ever heard it, a guttural growl that seemed to shake the walls. I turned, my heart in my throat, and saw the laundry room door standing wide open. It hadn't been opened before. My mother had closed it. The darkness within was absolute, a void that seemed to beckon me closer. I crept toward it, my pulse hammering, too scared to turn on the light, but desperate to shut the door. With a burst of courage, I lunged forward, slammed it shut, and sprinted back to the couch, curling up as if its cushions could shield me from whatever lurked below. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, I couldn't tell. Then a voice shattered the silence. Low, gravelly, unmistakably male, it came from behind me. "My God, how you've grown!" My blood turned to ice. I turned slowly, my body trembling, and there in the corner booth sat a man. He was gaunt, his skin sallow, his eyes sunken and glinting with something I couldn't name. His arm rested on the table, his head propped on his fist, as if he'd been watching me for hours. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. He stood, his movements jerky, his posture hunched like a predator sizing up its prey. "Your mother won't let me see you," he said, his voice dripping with resentment as he took a step toward me. That broke the spell. A scream tore from my throat and I bolted for the stairs, my voice echoing through the house. "Mom! Mom!" I slammed the basement door behind me, fumbling with the lock as tears streamed down my face. My mother was there in an instant, her face pale with fear. I babbled about the man, the voice, the way he'd looked at me. She didn't hesitate. She called 911, her voice shaking as she spoke to the operator. The police arrived quickly, their flashlights cutting through the basement's gloom. I stayed upstairs clinging to my mother as they searched every corner. When they returned, their faces were grim. They'd found him, hiding in the laundry room of all places. It was my uncle, my mother's estranged brother, a man whose name was never spoken in our house. He was a monster, excommunicated from our family for unspeakable crimes against children. He'd broken into our home, lurking in the shadows, watching me. The police took him away, and I later learned he was sent back to prison for another crime. But the memory of his voice, his eyes, lingered like a stain on my soul. Even now, years later, I can't step into a basement without feeling his gaze on the back of my neck. Story 2. The Unseen Guest at the Party. It was the kind of October day that felt like summer's last defiant stand, warm, golden, and buzzing with the excitement of my cousin Andy's 12th birthday. Our family was large, boisterous, and prone to gatherings that spilled over with laughter and chaos. That year, the party was at my Uncle John and Aunt Melissa's sprawling house, a place that felt like a playground for kids like me. The backyard was alive with games, the air thick with the smell of grilled burgers, and the sound of cousins shrieking with delight. But it was the house's basement, with its endless nooks and crannies, that held the real magic for us. Andy and I were the same age, thick as thieves, and my older brother Chase, 2 years our senior, was our unofficial leader. Our other cousins, a mix of older and younger kids, joined in as we played our favorite game, a high-stakes version of hide-and-seek that turned the house into a labyrinth of secrets. The rules were simple but thrilling. Hiders got a head start, seekers had a time limit, and if you were found, you had one chance to bolt for the backyard to safety. The house was a hider's paradise with closets, crawl spaces, and a basement that felt like it stretched on forever. Aunt Melissa's fashion room in the basement was the crown jewel of hiding spots. She was a fashion designer, and the room was a wonderland of creativity. Full-body mannequins draped in her latest designs, headless torsos on stands, studio lights casting dramatic shadows, and a green screen that made it feel like a movie set. It was both enchanting and unsettling, the mannequins staring blankly as if guarding secrets of their own. That day, Chase and I were hiders, and I had a plan. I grabbed 2 blankets from an ottoman in the main basement area, one to cover myself and one to throw over a mannequin as a decoy. I slipped into the fashion room, draped the blanket over a full-body mannequin, and grinned at my own cleverness. It looked convincingly like a person hiding, and I imagined the seeker's shock when they yanked it off to reveal nothing but plastic. I crawled under a desk in the corner, pulling the second blanket over me, and settled in for the wait. The game was a test of patience, and I was good at it. The basement was quiet, save for the occasional creak of the house or the muffled laughter from the party above. I waited, my heart thumping with anticipation, as minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then commotion erupted in the main basement. Chase's voice laced with laughter, followed by the pounding of feet as he and a cousin raced for the stairs. I stayed put, confident in my hiding spot, until Chase's voice called out from the doorway. "Game's over! Food's ready! Food's—" I scrambled out from under the desk, my stomach growling at the thought of the feast waiting outside. The backyard was a scene of pure joy, tables laden with food, cousins running wild, adults swapping stories. I ate my fill, laughing with Aunt Melissa about the game, when a sudden realization hit me. I'd left the blankets in the fashion room, one still draped over her mannequin. She was particular about her workspace, and I didn't want to get in trouble. After a quick trip to the bathroom, I headed back to the basement to clean up. The fashion room was dark when I entered, and I flicked on the light, expecting to see my decoy mannequin still covered. But the blanket was gone. Instead, it was draped over something else, something in a seated position, slumped in a chair in the corner. My first thought was that it was another mannequin, but Aunt Melissa didn't have any seated ones. I stepped closer, my curiosity outweighing my unease, and noticed the blanket twitching slightly, as if something beneath it were breathing. A sour, unfamiliar smell hit my nose, sharp and wrong. I laughed nervously. "Who's that?" I called, expecting one of my cousins to jump out and scare me. No answer. The silence was heavy, pressing against my chest. I edged closer, peering at the base of the blanket, and my breath caught. Bare feet peeked out, dark and calloused, unlike any I recognized. My family was large, but none of us had feet like that. Panic surged through me, and I turned, sprinting for the stairs, my voice breaking as I shouted for my uncle. "There's someone in the basement!" The party froze. My uncle, a burly man with a no-nonsense demeanor, grabbed a few others and stormed downstairs, me trailing behind, my heart pounding. When we reached the fashion room, the blanket lay crumpled on the floor, the chair empty. Whoever or whatever had been there was gone. I insisted I'd seen someone, describing the feet, the smell, the movement. My family searched the house, every closet, every corner, but found nothing. The police were called, and they combed the property, noting that the doors had been left unlocked during the party. A homeless person, they suggested, or someone who'd wandered in and fled when discovered. No one doubted my story, not really, but the lack of evidence left a lingering unease. The party resumed, but the joy had drained away. For years, I've replayed that moment. The image of those bare feet burned into my mind. The basement, once a place of games and laughter, became a place of shadows, a reminder that sometimes the things we fear are all too real. Story 3. The Stranger in the Snow. Christmas break when I was 9 was supposed to be a time of warmth and family, a chance to escape the upheaval of my parents' recent divorce. My mother, her new boyfriend, and I had traveled to my great-grandfather's house in a small town on an Indian reservation in Idaho, a place where the world felt both vast and intimate. The house was a 2-story haven surrounded by fields and forests that stretched out like a painting under the winter sky. It was beautiful, but there was a wildness to it, a sense that the land held secrets older than the house itself. My great-grandfather's home was a gathering place, and that year it was bursting with family. My aunt, uncle, and cousins surprised us with a visit, driving 10 hours to join the festivities. The house was alive with noise, laughter, stories, the clink of glasses as the adults caught up. But for me and my cousins, Sam, 9 like me, Evan, 12, and Kennedy, 10, the real adventure was in the basement. It was a cavernous space, lit only by a pellet stove's faint glow and the moonlight filtering through a single window. We'd invented a game we called Monster, a thrilling mix of hide and seek and tag that turned the basement into a playground of fear and excitement. The rules were simple. Sam and Evan were the monsters, hiding in the dark, while Kennedy and I searched for them. They'd make eerie noises to guide us, but if we got too close, they'd roar and chase us back to the stairs, our designated safe zone. It was terrifying in the best way, the kind of fear that made your heart race and your laughter echo. That night, with the adults deep in conversation upstairs, we decided to play. Sam and Evan went down first, giving us 2 minutes to wait before descending. The basement was pitch black, the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow sound. Kennedy led the way, her flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. We moved cautiously, listening for the telltale noises that would betray our cousins' hiding spots. The first round went as expected. Sam and Evan leapt out, we screamed, and we all raced upstairs laughing and breathless. But the second round was different. As we descended again, I took the lead, my nerves tingling with anticipation. A loud thud echoed from somewhere in the basement. Sam or Evan, I thought, banging the wall to scare us. I jumped but pressed on, Kennedy close behind. Then I saw it, a figure standing outside the window, silhouetted against the moonlight. It was tall, motionless, watching us. I froze, my hands shooting out to stop Kennedy. "What?" she whispered, annoyed, until she followed my gaze and saw it too. "Sam, Evan," she called softly, "stop the game. There's someone outside." Sam's voice came from the darkness, skeptical. "You're just scared." I could hear the grin in his tone, but I was shaking now. "Look at the window," I hissed. To my relief, Sam and Evan emerged from under the ping-pong table, their faces skeptical but curious. Evan laughed, suggesting it was our Uncle Stan smoking outside, but I knew better. Stan always smoked on the front porch. Sam offered another theory. Maybe it was Grandpa checking the house. But I wasn't convinced. I crept upstairs, pretending to look for something, and scanned the living room. Every adult I knew was there, accounted for. My stomach twisted. Whoever was outside wasn't family. I returned to the basement, my voice trembling as I told my cousins, "Everyone's upstairs. There's someone out there." Kennedy's eyes widened and she started to cry. Sam and Evan's bravado faltered, their faces paling. We huddled at the top of the stairs, debating what to do. Sam suggested confronting the figure, but we were kids, unarmed and terrified. Instead, we waited, hoping the figure would leave. After what felt like an eternity, we ventured back down, the figure gone from the window. Relieved, we decided to abandon the game and play ping pong instead. As we flipped on the basement lights, my eyes caught something. A window, slightly ajar, letting in a chill. Had it been open before? I didn't have time to think. My gaze shifted to a sofa chair in the corner, and my heart stopped. A man sat there, mid-40s, his eyes locked on us. His smile was slow, predatory, chilling me to the bone. "Run!" I screamed. We bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind us, our cries echoing as we burst into the living room. My uncle, a cop, grabbed one of Grandpa's guns and headed downstairs. But when he returned, his face was grim. The man was gone, likely through the open window. Outside, footprints in the snow led from the window to the driveway, then vanished. Nothing was stolen, but the violation lingered. My cousins and I clung to our parents that night, too scared to sleep alone. My grandfather, devastated that his home had been breached, passed away years later, but the memory of that night never faded. To this day, basements hold a primal fear for me, a reminder of the stranger who watched us from the shadows.